Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. The setting sun shined straight through the front window of his car, blinding him as he drove through a neighborhood in his vehicle. Naruto blinked as well as he could to get the sunspots out of his cerulean eyes, but even rubbing his face did not alleviate the problem as he continued on the road. It's almost over with, he muttered to himself. For the last 2 years, Naruto had been in talks with a major company, one that was set on buying his own out and acquiring their own portion of his industry. Soon, he would have this burden lifted off his shoulder and be able to breathe again. Naruto checked the intersection as he sped through, his mind somewhere else as his eyes skimmed past the red hexagons on all sides. With his personal sacrifice, his employees would be happy and move on to bigger and better things. And he would be happy with that. His blue orbs dimmed. Was he happy? He was a business owner. That was fun. Of course his parents were the ones who had started the business and passed it off to him. Sure, he had some small insignificant regrets, but who didn't? He had the right to do what he wanted, right? Naruto shook his head, sighing as the sky began to turn red in the horizon. When did he get so responsible in life? Where was the teen he grew up as, not caring about the world, and just living life? He used to be a real rebel. Take it to the man and screw the consequences. Yeah. What the? Naruto jerked as a flashing and wailing siren erupted behind him. Naruto looked back in his mirror and immediately his entire body sagged upon seeing the police cruiser tailing behind. Not again. Naruto muttered morbidly as he slid his car over to the curb in front of a random house at the crest of the hill. For what felt like hours, he sat there, his legs jittering as he continued to glance at his mirror at the officer still in their car. And then he would groan as he turned back to the blinding light in front him. God, couldn't they catch bad guys or something? He was just a man trying to live his life and meet up with some friends. The freeway was always packed, so he took this side road. Geez. Naruto cursed, what's taking him so low? Damn. Naruto's voice rasped as the officer had indeed stepped out of their vehicle, their black uniform tight to their body, proper work boots strapped to their feet and a belt that held everything just right on their hips. Not too bulky, but not missing anything. There was their badge above the gun and the radio and camera at their chest. Speaking of which, the dryness in his mouth intensified as the officer's chest heaved a little as they spoke into their radio, signaling his license plate no doubt as they stopped at the rear of his vehicle. Damn, I haven't been stopped by an attractive female cop before. He must have been ogling because suddenly they were knocking on his window and he pressed the button to roll it down. Why yes, officer. License and registration, sir. Oh, of course. Naruto stumbled as his eyes glimpsed at her chest again before reaching over to his glove compartment to comply with the officer's request. Can you tell me what I did wrong? Naruto easily got his registration and turned to see the officer constantly checking their periphery, always aware of their surroundings as they took the license and began to look over it. Sir, you were speeding in a school zone and drove through posted signs. There were signs. Where? Oh. Naruto's mood deflated. Red hexagon. Stop sign. Of course. I may be willing to ignore the signs as they were put up a month ago, but I'll still have to ticket you for speeding. The officer spoke behind their sunglasses, as Naruto imagined seeing their eyes skimming over the information. But then their eyebrows widened, as their mouth turned into a smile as they bent down to the window, their arms casually leaning against the top of his car. Naruto gulped as the woman's chest moved directly into his vision, and pressed tighter into the fabric of her uniform, and Naruto wished that a button would be undone to give him a better view. But alas, they were all properly done and her smile had other intentions. Step out of the car, sir. Okay. Naruto nodded as he turned the car off and stepped out. Did she think he was drunk? Up against the car. Naruto leaned on the car and continued to blush as the officer trailed their hands over his arms and then between his legs. Oh God. If she kept this up, then he'd have a serious problem between his legs. Are you such a man that rules mean nothing to you? No ma'am. I'm all for rules, but I may bend 'em a little for you today. Naruto swore he heard the officer COO before he blushed more as she squeezed his arm with affection. The cop was hitting on him. Naruto continued to blush deeply as she flirted with him, not really hearing what she was saying but amazed that this was happening to him of all people. A hot cop flirting with a guy like him. Wow. The officer sighed and backed up. You don't recognize me, do you? What? Naruto blurted over the top of his car. He inched his head around to look at the female officer closely. Damn. He thought to himself as he ogled the woman. That uniform suited her perfectly, tailor-made and yet not sewist. She just filled it out nicely. He wished he knew her, but none of his friends were cops. I'm sorry, officer, but Naruto stalled. Her face did look familiar now that he looked closely. The cheekbones matched a girl he grew up with, maybe. She wasn't wearing a cap, but her crown braided hair stood out as it reached to the back of her neck wonderfully, tantalizing him so. Wait, no you couldn't be. Naruto fought down a blush, as the officer reached for their sunglasses and took them off. Her pink hair reflected the sunset's rays back at him, but suddenly he was in a forest of green, a green that took his heart so long ago. Just to confirm it, the officer pointed to the namatag on her, and as Naruto gazed at it, his breath left him. Sakura. It's good to see you again, Naruto. Sakura smiled over at him shyly, and Naruto's memory shot over his emotions as tears edged along his eyes. Sakura Haruno. His ex-girlfriend from high school. His rebellious partner who always helped him get into trouble, and shared the punishment when she joined in. The girl who had taken it over the edge of love and who he'd once given his heart to. His eyes stung all of a sudden at the pain that was re-emerging after all this time. The girl who'd disappeared in a single night without anyone knowing and leaving with his heart, never returning. Wow, Sakura. You look good. Naruto complimented as Sakura's cheeks blushed a slight pink. I am good. And you, the rebel as always. Sakura smirked as Naruto glanced down the street to where the stop sign was. Oh come on. You were always twice as bad. He argued back playfully. The two chatted and laughed as they reconnected on the side of the road. No gaps were found as each spoke their turn and eagerly leaned in to listen to the other. The sun now touched the edge of the hill in the distance, when suddenly, Sakura leaned forward and hugged him. Soothing relief flooded his system as Naruto hugged back. He missed this. His Sakura was such a destructive force, never to be underestimated, and yet as gentle as the wind if she so wanted. Naruto began to let go to give her space, but her arms only tightened harder around his neck. I've missed you so much, Sakura uttered into his ear, and Naruto sighed in relief. He hadn't really wanted to let go either. After another minute, they ever so slowly parted and Naruto's eyes couldn't help but stare at the badge on her chest. But damn, Sakura. I never would have thought you were a police officer. Really. Sakura aired her head and twisted her leg a bit, modeling her uniform in front of him as she smiled unabashed. I know. Totally not what I used to be. I don't know. Naruto suggested as he shrugged his arms in her direction. You always did like to wear uniforms. Oh you. Sakura giggled and playfully slapped at his shoulder, making Naruto wince. Yep. Still strong Sakura, who could always throw a hard punch his way at every flirtation. She was never going to change. Unit 107, 454 in progress on Ashen and Kyo Avenue. A squawk on her radio interrupted his next thought as Sakura turned to answer back. Roger, dispatch, en route. Naruto watched her playful personality turn serious in the span of a second. Awe formed in his mind as yet another side of Sakura opened up before him. She had changed so much. He didn't know everything like he used to after all these years apart. He wondered what stories she had to tell after so long. Hey Naruto. Sakura grabbed his attention again. You want to get together? For old times. Sure. Naruto smiled. This brief conversation elicited thoughts of good times, and he wanted to reminisce some more. Say Wednesday. Sakura offered up. The QB. I know the place. Naruto replied with a matching smirk from Sakura. Of course I know the place. He thought. First place we went to drink with their fake kids. 7 p.m. He dictated the time. Sakura smiled brightly as her teeth shined with her emerald forest eyes. It's a date then. Sakura turned away and Naruto took that as the sign that the meetup was over. But as he stepped back into his car and reached for the ignition, Sakura bent down through the window and passed him a pink paper. Here you go. Naruto smiled, confused at her, and looked down. He was hoping to see her number in case she was running late on Wednesday. Instead, there were just 41000. It was the ticket. What Sakura? Sakura smiled snidely at him as she stood back up, Naruto seeing the thrill of power over him in her eyes. Us meeting is one thing. Tickets are another. Sakura clicked her camera back on and spoke in a more professional tone. Next time, Mr. Namikaze, stay safe and drive under the speed limit. Have a wonderful day. Naruto watched her walk away in the uniform slacks framing her backside and getting into her cruiser. By the time Sakura pulled away to head to the call, Naruto was just watching the sunset over the horizon. His heart pulsed wildly as he held his hand over his chest in amazed silence. No matter how controlled his breathing was, his heart just wouldn't calm down. Naruto entered his destination for the night, a small restaurant and bar that really only the locals knew of. The dance floor only had enough for 20 people, but the food was top shelf. After nodding to the bouncer who was looking for trouble, he headed excitedly across the light dance floor to a booth where his normal friends were there waiting for him. As soon as they saw him, half of them shook their heads, frowning with disappointment. Naruto breathed out a puff of guilty air from his lips as he neared them. He hated to disappoint them. Sorry I'm late you guys. What happened this time, Naruto? Tenten asked, the apprentice blacksmith of the group who was under a heavy load right now to master how to make replica katanas of the Edo period. Naruto blushed. They were going to rag on him again. I got a ticket. Another one. Shikamaru frowned at him. That's the third one this year. I told you not to take that side street. You just won't slow down and the neighborhood has a lot of cops who live there. Naruto then smiled wide. Maybe not slowing down is worth it because you'll never guess who I ran into. Beyoncé. No. The president. You guys aren't even trying. Naruto laughed. Who? Sakura Haruno. Naruto uttered the name and immediately the 4 people around him stopped drinking and eating and just stared at him as if he had spoken a language they had forgotten and were just remembering. Wait. Tenten held her hand out to him, being one of his closest friends since what felt like forever. She always had his back. You mean your ex-girlfriend from high school? Naruto shrugged a little. Well, we never really officially broke up or anything, but yeah. Shikamaru eyed him lazily. Naruto, that's a lot of trouble. Oh come on guys. Naruto groaned as he leaned his head back and rolled his eyes. His friends would never understand. What's up? Kiba interrupted as he slid down next to Tenten, and handed her and Naruto the drinks from the bar. Kiba. Naruto ran into Sakura just now. Where? At the bar. Kiba smiled wolfishly over and wiggled his eyebrows. Is she still available? She's a cop. Naruto breathed out. Kiba's snort sounded loudly. No way. Rebel Sakura. The girl who printed fake IDs for anyone who asked and was the little criminal of Konoha High. Naruto grinned whimsically. My conspirator. She wanted to meet up on Wednesday. Wait. Kiba grinned lewdly. Naruto, was she still hot? Naruto's gulp was very noticeable to everyone in his group. Very much. Niece. Tenten interrupted the boys ogling at the image of their old friend. Naruto, have you told Hinata yet? What do you mean? Naruto shrugged. I just met her on the way here. Besides, I'm just meeting a friend. Why should I? Naruto, you're engaged. Tenten stressed as she raised her voice at him. Naruto did his best to keep her gaze, but then she looked down and a sour face erupted onto her face. You keep taking your ring off. Naruto sighed defeated before reaching into his pocket to grab the very expensive ring and slipped it on. He couldn't help but stare at it, at the price tag his fiancée had insisted on, at the meaning behind wearing it. I'm just not used to it yet. You asked her to marry you, Naruto. It was around 11 at night when Naruto drove back to his home. Just below the safe driving limit, but he was still coherent and everything, and he was kind of hoping Sakura might pull him over again if he was lucky. As a huge building appeared in his windshield, Naruto turned around the corner and then slipped his car into the garage of the huge apartment building. Waving at the attendant and after parking in his spot, he casually made his way to the elevator that would take him to his home. He passed a Jaguar, and a Ferrari that hadn't moved since he bought the place, and a bulletproof SUV that stayed parked just in front of the elevator with two men watching him from the seats as always. Naruto stepped inside and pressed the button for his floor, and watched as the numbers went up, from 5, to 15, to 25, until he reached his floor of 31. Stepping out of the elevator, he only had a square hallway with two doors, one the emergency stairwell, and the other the entrance to the penthouse. That's right. The penthouse. Naruto opened the door to the huge home, complete with floor-to-ceiling walls of glass that looked out at the many skyscrapers around the bustling city underneath him. He walked past the grand piano that no one played, across the Persian rug that no one was allowed to drink or eat over, and past the many fine artworks along the interior walls that he couldn't help but feel lost in if someone asked him about the subtle meanings or the painter. Glancing around just once, he moved past the spiral staircase that could take him to the 32nd floor, on which was a huge pool and patio for any parties and relaxing weather that happened here. But he casually marched up the 2 steps towards the master bedroom. This was all too much for his simple upbringing, and if he did buy a house, none of this would be in it, but his fiancée was brought up this way, and when they chose this place, he couldn't help but want to make her happy. As he turned the corner to enter the bedroom, he saw his fiancée, Hinata, in her nightgown, doing her hair in the mirror, and at his footfalls, she glanced back to see him standing there. Hey sweetie. he called out as Hinata looked back at him through the mirror, and the smile she sent him made his heart melt. She was so in love with him, and they didn't worry that she was the heiress to a vast fortune. He knew he wasn't her fiancé just because of money. Evening Naruto. As he moved to the bathroom, Hinata turned back to her hair and called out, her voice echoing about the tall ceiling. "How was your night out?" "Really good," Naruto called out as he left the door only slightly ajar to hear her and brushed his teeth. "Nice to see them as always. Naruto, I'll need you to stop by tomorrow so that we can finalize the seating chart." Naruto sighed at that request and spit the paste out into the sink as he cleaned his brush and leaned out of the door to look back at her sadly. Quote. "Can't you do that?" Hinata looked back at him through the mirror, frowning back at him as if she was expecting a better answer. "Naruto, it's 1,000 people. But Hinata, I barely know any of them, and the disputes with each other. I would just be lost and confused." Naruto's eyebrows furrowed. As Hinata gazed at him and began to wobble her lip, Naruto already felt his resistance dropping by the second. He had wanted a small wedding, just their family and friends, maybe his 10 closest friends and their family. That's it. But the Hyuga was a large family, and not just that, they ran one of the largest corporations in the Land of Fire. Their corporation ran a huge multitude of companies underneath their umbrella of a parent organization, and so any celebration, big or small, required months of prep. He had 20 people split among 2 tables. Hinata, well, she had the rest. But he was marrying her. Naruto finally sighed in defeat. "All right. I'll be there. Thank you." Hinata quickly smiled in gratitude and turned back to her nightly ritual. Naruto began to change into his pajamas, but as he did the buttons, the image of himself in the mirror reminded him of his friend's advice. "Hey Hinata." "Yeah." Naruto gulped back his nervousness. He didn't want to make her upset. "I was talking with the guys tonight and they said I should clear it with you." "Oh. What's that?" Hinata called back as she started braiding her hair into another style, not happy with the previous one. "Well, I met an old friend today, who wanted to meet up on Wednesday night." Hinata dampened her smile and turned around, looking directly at him to frown with her eyebrows quirked up. "Naruto, I don't think you need to tell me that." Hinata went back to doing her hair, while Naruto got behind her and grazed his knuckles over her supple neck. "Well, it's my ex from high school." "Oh." Hinata finished and stood to kiss him on the lips. Both adults spent a good minute kissing, but neither initiated something more primal. Hinata backed up, ending the lip lock, and moved to preen at her fiancé's collar. "Do you still love her?" "No." Naruto smiled coyly. "She's just an old flame I knew. Should I be worried?" Hinata asked as she walked away to the opposite side of the room. "I don't think so." Naruto shrugged as he followed her as she stepped to a side of the bed. "It's been 10 years after all. She's a completely different person." "Naruto," Hinata admonished as she pet his face and looked at him with her clear eyes that honestly still creeped Naruto out on how white they seemed to be. He could never truly find where her irises ended and her palest blue began. Hinata brought his head down as she kissed his cheek fondly and held his hands close to hers. "Naruto, it's true that this marriage is not a purely physical one. This is what some would call a business transaction. My company is buying yours and the marriage is in that deal." Hinata smiled and brought him closer to her. "But we love each other anyways. I have loved you since the moment I met you, Naruto. I don't care about your past or present, because in 6 weeks, you and I will be married, bonded for life. I trust you, Naruto. You are not that guy to throw me away for a cheap thrill of the past. Naruto smiled as they moved into bed. He had nothing to doubt about this at all. Sakura just wanted to reconnect, and so did he. After so long, he could find out where she'd been all this time. After all, she had left without saying goodbye. Wednesday. What do I wear? Sakura screeched into her teeth as she looked at the vast closet in front of her, wearing only racy blue lace underwear in her rented room as she looked at her different dresses. How was she supposed to choose the right one? She wanted to knock him dead, shock his heart like lightning, give him a heart attack just at the mere sight of her, but in order to do that she had to go with exactly what he liked. How was she supposed to know what he would like after so many years? Sakura's hand reached to her right, gliding over fabric where her more mature conservative outfits were located. She could show up looking sophisticated and regal and smart in a nice skirt and a blouse and matching jacket to match her eyes. Sakura's gaze drifted to an older dress on the left side of her closet and bit her lip at how tempting it could make her look. Or she could go with her old rebellious look, which she knew had driven him wild back in high school and was what made him fall head over heels for the other way back then. Are you still choosing? A blonde spoke up from the hallway before poking her head in and snickering at her roommate's lack of attire. Sakura groaned and turned her pleading eyes on her roommate, who was much more fashion-forward than she was. Ino, help. Ino shook her head, smiling at her whimpering roommate as she walked inside the bedroom and laughed as Sakura struggled to take off her underwear while at the same time reaching for another pair. Sakura, calm down. Ino insisted, trying to get her friend to chill, but Sakura's demeanor moved to the other spectrum. How can I be calm, Ino? This is my shot with Naruto again. Ino's smile widened as a memory came to her mind. I remember your talks about him when we first met. Maria's boarding school for troubled girls. She interrupted aloud. Her comment threw Sakura out of her downward spiral as she sighed at the memory as her back straightened, both girls smiling at the memory of the first thing that school had taught them not to do. Rule 1, don't slouch. I was such a mess back then. Sakura uttered as fresh tears welled up in her eyes and Ino rushed over to pull her into her chest, the teary-eyed girl burrowing into her as both smiled bitterly at the memory. And I was there the whole way. Ino whispered into her ear, as Sakura smiled and looked back at her fondly. I know. That's why you're my best friend for life. After a few more minutes, Ino stepped back and faced her eye to eye, emphasizing her words as she smiled. Sakura, you have nothing to be worried about tonight. Naruto was your first everything in high school, and you've been with no one else all this time apart. Trust me, that separation builds a need that you can use. You'll want him so bad, a touch here and a comment there will make you so happy. You'll flirt non-stop and grab his attention no matter what you wear or don't wear. Ino. Sakura blushed, puffing out her cheeks at her friend's speech. What if he doesn't take me seriously? Look, as you told me. You said date, right? Yeah. Sakura nodded along. You asked him out. Ino confirmed. Yeah. So talk with him like I know you love to. Ino insisted as Sakura smiled before she grinned impishly. And then bring him home to his brains out. At her words, Sakura blushed deeply. Not if you're here. Ino stood back up, her job as a consoling roommate and best friend done. I promise to be in my room by 2 a.m. Have a great night. Ino gazed back at the closet as Sakura turned back around. By the way, go with the rebel look. He'll like that. Okay. Sakura nodded, already lost in her own world. Ino bit her cheek, and gazed at her. She didn't have to, but she also needed to remind her. And Sakura. Yeah. What you told me about him when you got back on Monday. Ino spoke and watched as Sakura hid deeper into herself. Whatever happens, don't say it. Quote. Right. Sakura sighed as her friend closed the door. Taking out the old dress, she donned it and then gazed at herself in the mirror, and was rewarded as a mild, fond memory gazed back at her, the grin wild and predatory. She had been with Naruto 10 years ago, in his bed, and it had been the best and only night of her life. Any guy she had flirted with or tried to kiss never made her feel as good as that night, as if she could never be with another to preserve that memory. She didn't want anyone else. Until Monday, she had no desire for anyone else. He was the only one for her in the whole world, and this was her second chance. A red hue arose to her eyes as they lowered the mood, her mind morphing her thoughts as she imagined seeing him tonight, seeing him with the same energy in her be. The bell of the trolley sounded as Naruto made his way to the rear exit. As it slowed down to continue its journey on the preset tracks, he jumped the 6 inches down to the cobblestone street and continued forward, the trolley leaving him in the historic district of Konoha. With a nice red dress shirt and black pants and shoes, Naruto began his trek down the 2 blocks to the entrance of the small club that was the QB. After only a few minutes, Naruto handed the bouncer his payment and head inside, and was immediately assaulted by the fond memories of his past that danced across his vision. 8 years ago, this place was a rave center with loud music, a packed floor of college students, and a massive line to get in. 3 more clubs had grown around it, dampening the mood of the club a bit, but it was still popular enough, just not too crowded with it being the middle of the week and all that. As he watched people dance, a slow build-up of tension ate its way up his arms and tightened around his collar, and Naruto unbuttoned it to let himself breathe. He had nothing to worry about. This meetup was something to look forward to reconnect with his best friend from his younger years and boast about his life since then. Everything would be just fine, definitely, most likely. Naruto. A voice called out behind him and he turned to freeze at the sight of his ex. Sakura didn't do much better as both ogled the other. Sakura's eyes roamed over his dress shirt, how his toned muscles from high school were still there, and he'd grown into a fine man. His hair was still in the same hairstyle, but it made him who he was. No one could mistake him for anything else. It was his lips and eyes that made her legs wobble as the giddiness flooded her cheeks from that adorable smile, and she felt the pull of her entire being coming into his as if he was a rolling riptide drawing her out to sea. Meanwhile, Naruto stared in awe at Sakura's done-up hair, dressing up tonight more than he'd have ever seen her in high school. She had left it with a gentle sea breeze of a wave that draped down to her neck, but crossed over her face, covering part of her eye from view, bringing up the enigma that was her personality. But then Naruto's view gazed downward at her choice of wear, and it was just as risque as in high school. There was her red dress hanging off one shoulder and leaving the other completely bare. The deep blood-red material gave way as his eyes glanced lower, turning into a sea of black mesh, but he stiffened as the mesh was utterly see-through as the outline of her S showed clearly but was just covered up by her red bra that was lacy in nature underneath it. Naruto suddenly felt underdressed. No doubt he was spending more time eyeing her up than she was to him, but the red dress fit to her skin so tightly, with only slits along her legs for movement. He was momentarily confused for a second at her height, wondering if she had had another growth spurt in their time apart, but the sight of heels only accentuated her toned legs, making her the same height as him. He smiled back at her as she grinned impishly. Even after all these years, she still had no makeup on her person. She was still the all-natural, simple yet gorgeous girl who would steal your wallet while you simply gazed at her. Same as the girl he met way back then. Neither had to speak words as both stepped into the embrace and wrapped their arms around the other. Both heads dug into the other's shoulder as their hands wandered all over the clothes, feeling the other up while trying to be sneaky about it, but all around them, adults grinded and danced, making him only one of many doing the same thing. I miss this so much. Sakura sniffled, moaning into his ear as her arms tightened even harder at the feel of a warm, familiar body pressed against her. She was always a physical person, craving the touch of another, and so she cried a bit. And because she was pressed so close to him, Naruto pulled her even closer, smelling her neck and smiling contently. You smell amazing. Bought some nice perfume in sooner. Sakura shrugged. But Naruto smiled into her ear and whispered. Didn't steal it. Sakura scoffed playfully and pulled away, both immediately missing the other's warmth as she crossed her arms and pouted playfully, in his direction. I've changed a lot, you know. Sakura retorted. Her crossed arms only emphasized her point as Naruto gazed down at her mesh-covered S pressed out towards him, smiling coyly. He had grown up with them being smaller, the mesh outline truly showing him off at how proud she was of them. He had been right all along. She was a late bloomer, just as he had told her a decade ago. I'll say. Naruto chuckled as Sakura quickly followed his gaze down and back at him. Pervert. She giggled warmly as they stared back to the entrance where the line to the club was as some guy was in the process of being thrown out with his ID being ripped before him. Remember when we used to pay that guy off to let us sneak in? Naruto reminisced. I remember how young we were. Sakura smiled fondly, before she looked around to see what had changed and what hadn't. This is where we had our first date. Naruto grinned, blushing as he scratched at the back of his neck. Yeah, I remember thinking I was a loser who was so lost at everything. You had to take charge with how nervous I was. Sakura giggled at him, stepping closer to rub at his arm. You were so scared we'd get caught. I was nervous because I was asking out the school rebel. Naruto bantered back, chuckling. Everyone thought I was crazy, chasing after the girl who stole my wallet every week. Sakura smiled bashfully at the fond memories that bubbled up from her past. Stealing his wallet had been fun, running around the whole school giggling to give him a hint at where she was, even better, distracting him with her body and actions to show him that she liked him had made it all worth it back then, and when he finally asked her out, that made her whole romantic endeavor of playing hard to get so much more. Want a drink? Naruto offered, nodding to the bar, and Sakura agreed as they both stepped up to the bar and ordered when the bartender looked their way. They spent a few minutes chatting about silly things that really didn't matter, like how Naruto had a problem with kids at the workplace, or how Sakura had held a wife back that afternoon after her husband confessed to sleeping with her sister on their wedding night. But in the back of his mind, Naruto was just waiting for her to relax before getting into the questions that had plagued him for years. So as their drinks were brought to them, Naruto waited until Sakura took a sip before he asked. Sakura, why didn't you ever tell me where you were? I mean, I went to your house the morning after and no one was even there. The drink froze on her lips as Sakura did her best to not freak out at that question, knowing he would ask it tonight. Closing her eyes and calming herself, she prepared herself to brush the question aside, but as she glanced over at his eyes, her resolve vanished. The hurt and sadness in his emotional eyes had always made her more humble and quiet back then, and even now, they cut past her false swagger that she tried so hard to keep up. With a sigh, Sakura slid her drink down and swirled the straw around the circle, her focus on the red dye of the drink that they had added to it. Inner turmoil and heartache coursed through the cartilage of her bones, but she continued, hoping that some weight might be lifted off her shoulders. Besides, the best way to get a guy back was to be honest, right? Quote. Remember that company who sold fur at the auction? Yeah. We pelted their windows with paint, right? Naruto confirmed, remembering that Sakura had been wearing a very wide miniskirt that night, and they're making out as they did the crime at the same time. Sakura sighed. Quote. My parents met me the morning after our night together. Naruto's cheeks reddened in embarrassment. No kid wanted to see their parents after being Yule with their lover. And that night had been amazing. They had made a deal with the company and sent me to a boarding school in Mist County. Quote. I see. Naruto looked down sadly. It all made sense now with this closure of his past. She had left so suddenly, leaving him with nowhere to go. His question was finally answered, but wait. Boarding school. Naruto reached over and looked at her deeply in the eyes, noticing the guilty look of remorse that flooded within her emerald eyes. But you could have called, Sakura. Why didn't you call? Her eyes widened as Naruto reached forward and cradled the side of her stomach. A look of astonishment and distraught plagued her mind as she looked down at his masculine finger sliding along the material at her waist. Her own fingers slid down to cover his, and warmth tingled all over her skin, electrifying her in place. It amazed her that in her regret, she only now felt how his finger tightened into her stomach, showing how in need he was of her too. He was so warm. Why didn't you call, Sakura? I would have been there in an instant. At his declaration, Sakura teared up and the liquid pooled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Her fingers intertwined in his as she pulled on it, bringing his palm up to caress against her cheek. I know you would have made the journey for me, Naruto. Believe me, I know that if I asked, you would have left everything for me just as I would have for you. Sakura's lips began to wobble. But your parents were still sick, in and out of the hospital all the time, and it was a terrible time for you with your parents' company without leadership. Every time I thought of you, I could only remember that stress you had with them and their company, and I didn't want to burden you with my sob stories about somewhere far away, and I figured you'd find someone else. Sakura turned to look at anywhere but at him, the weight of her testimony and admission only serving to weigh her down even further. She had been a coward. That was the truth. She could have called, she could have asked him to see her, but she hadn't. The tears began to crest over down her cheeks from her emotions, but suddenly a determined hand gripped her chin fondly and began to turn her head and eyes to see the old flame in his own staring through her, making her body quiver and heat up with the romance of the past. He was going to say it, wasn't he? But there's only one Sakura. Naruto declared, and tears fell down her cheeks as Sakura smiled in relief. The weights lifted at the sign that he forgave her and was just happy that she was here before him. As she dabbed at her eyes, she looked out to the dance floor and back again. Dance. Naruto nodded as they wordlessly entered the mash of tangling limbs and drowned out by the pulsating drones of the speakers. Their heads swiveled, trying to find room for the two of them, but it was too cramped. More people had entered since they began talking, and now the floor was in a panic, fueled by alcohol and a desire to pull one's limbs no matter where it landed. Sakura pulled on his sleeve, settling into a small crag of space, as Naruto joined her with every piece of fabric on him sliding and grinding against the other. No sooner had they pressed close than the doorway behind them closed with more people, and they were trapped in a space meant for one. Both stared into the other's eyes, as their bodies loosened as the minutes went on and another heart-pounding song ensued. Sakura's chest brushed against his arm, Naruto's hand slid along her bare shoulder, yet their eyes stared hungrily at the other, as the two beings tried to think in this mass hysteria that was a beating bastion of sound. Sakura, feeling the soft clench of his fingers on her shoulder, smiled as she brought herself even closer, her smile pressing into his neck for a second, smelling the unique cologne that he'd chosen for the night. Her hands wandered across his chest and up to his neck, and as Naruto's hand slipped to her waist, she was berated with happy signals. He was accepting her advances like he had when they were together. She could stop here, continue this foreplay, or she could fall down to the place she'd fallen before. Was it really a choice anyways? Naruto stifled a gasp as Sakura pressed her chest even deeper into his chest, as her waist twisted to and fro, sliding along his wandering hands that squeezed and prodded as if reunifying with a lost treasured item. He looked deeper into Sakura's eyes, seeing the swirling of the deep emerald, but as she leaned yet closer, he turned his head and tried to create space. He was too close, wasn't he? After all, it had been years since they had been this close. Naruto gulped back his nerves. This was so good though, he had missed this warmth and affection. Hinata was not into the physical stuff, she was more emotional based and just wanted comfort with words. Naruto always wondered why she loved him when was bad with words. God, Sakura, lips willing against. Oh, Sakura, Naruto huskily moaned as Sakura's teeth nibbled along his jawline, her fingers clawing at the base of his neck, pulling at his hair roughly. Sakura paused at the sultry moan from her partner, her entire being tremoring from his shudders. Sorry, Sakura whispered, her nose grazing just past his own. Naruto's cerulean glimpsed into her emerald, the way they shimmered, and growled back. No, you're not. Naruto rasped as a third song began, this one with thrice the beat and a cacophony of sounds. All it served for the two was a gunshot to jump forward, their fingers raking over every inch of bare skin that they could, as lips collided and tongues slipped in where they could. It was no longer a dance and more a savage meal. Sakura's hand slipped under his shirt as Naruto's fingers gripped at the bare thigh from under her skirt. Somehow, Sakura's back broke against a wall, as Naruto trapped her legs outside of his own, prodding her open as his knee constantly slid against a delicious spot between her legs that made Sakura's eyes go gray and her breath go light. Naruto's neck was constantly twisted this way and that, fingers pulling his hair so that a tongue and cheek could taste every inch of him before teeth bore down, leaving an indentation that only served as a launch point for the next invasion of lust. It was a den for foxes seeking to mate. That was the unspoken rule of the Kyuubi. In this one of many hidden corners, couples did whatever they pleased away from prying eyes, and the two were no different. With Sakura's leg grappling at his hip, Naruto's hands slid higher and higher, pulling the fabric of her skirt further up her bare legs, until they were hanging just below her waist. Naruto let his teeth widen a fraction, letting the skin slip out as Sakura cooed and muttered incoherently from within her whole world. Naruto's predatory grin seeked to push her even further than she was now. All that mattered to him in this moment was that Sakura's utter need was fulfilled, so he moved to what he knew was her weak spot and bit down as he felt her entire body spasm in ecstasy. As the teeth bit into her skin, Sakura's eyes ripped open at the red and green lights flashing down upon her. Her entire presence disappeared as her body sizzled and sparkled. He's at my neck. Sakura's rogue thought cooed as Naruto held her in position and bit even harder. He still knew that if he pressured her just under the right side of her neck, her needs were always fulfilled. The pressure tripled, and suddenly, at that moment, Sakura's mind faded from the world. There was no wall, no dance club. No life even existed outside of this merged body. There was only the two of them, about to make love again, and she couldn't believe her luck. Naruto's finger pressed into her neck to finish her off, and her thigh quivered as she felt herself approaching the crescendo of the night. Her eyes dilated, and her breath quickened. Naruto was here with her, and he still wanted her just the way she was. She could have him. She wanted him. I still love you. She breathed into his ear, and everything in the room paused. Their limbs froze where they were, on Heron's side, in his hair and at his back. Naruto backed up, his teeth leaving her neck as a wave of regret flooded into Sakura's system. She'd uttered it. She said the words that Ino had yelled at her not to say to him. The limbs slowly and quietly untangled from the other as Naruto's foggy mind finally managed to catch up with him. The room came back into focus. The red curtains along the wall, the floating bodies of the dance floor. But he could only look at the position they were in, his dress shirt untucked from his pants and wrinkled all over, the lower buttons undone and propped open to show his chest, lust as undone as the leather that was his belt. It amazed him just how quickly the two of them had devolved into starved teenagers again. To go from a proper greeting to that first night together where they were nothing but animals in heat. Oh no. Naruto grimly thought as he looked over at Sakura, how her Yule dress was now pulled around her waist, leaving only the bare skin and her clear panties on display along her upper thighs, the mesh bulging out threateningly around her chest as she continued to breathe erratically as her single strap on her shoulder now lay over it. The dress could be taken off so easily if he dared to touch it. Just as Naruto gazed over her form, Sakura's inner self was freaking out. She hadn't meant to say it so soon. Ino told her to hold off for a few dates and then hit the nail into the coffin to seal the deal. Maybe 3 dates and then have to show that she wasn't just there for the nostalgia. Raging embarrassment flooded her face as she noticed the primal hunger in Naruto's eyes, how they both deliciously ate up her exposed skin while also looking pitiful as if in regret. Forget I said that. Sakura babbled, but Naruto gaped his mouth open and looked at her like she was crazy. I can't. Please. Sakura insisted, trying to salvage the date. I was just so used to it, you know. I mean, we said it every day back then. Sakura leaned in to kiss his neck just under his ear and heard the happy rumble of his throat. We said it every morning we woke up and every night when we went to bed, right? Ah, right. I remember. Sakura smiled fondly into his neck. He still smelled like fresh wind on a sunny afternoon. Now was her chance to ask him out and become a couple again. She may have ruined the mood, but she could start again. Sakura began to gyrate her hips along his thigh and nuzzle into his cheek. Whatever the case, Naruto, can we try this out again? I really want to. And with a drop in the bucket, Sakura felt Naruto begin to push her back to the edge of the wall. So confused was she at his action that she acted like a doll as he leaned her back and frowned at her. Sakura, I shouldn't have done this. It isn't fair to you to drag you through this. I mean, I didn't know you'd be looking like, wow, you look good and, I. What? Sakura whispered, ending Naruto's babbles. What do you mean? Naruto gulped guiltily. Sakura, I'm engaged. What? Sakura almost shouted, her eyes bulging out as her body became stunned at the declaration. He was what? No way. She knew he was a great guy, but he was hers. He wouldn't, but, she was gone a long time. No, Sakura thought, as their encounter came back to her. But, then why would you flirt back with me? Naruto's eyes turned red with embarrassment and guilt. I didn't think I was. You so were. Sakura angrily yelled as she failed to hold back her tears that began to flood down her cheeks, ruining her mascara in the process. Disbelief in his words mixed with an intense guilt. Was he playing with her? Maybe he was scared to accept her love again. She could understand that. Sakura's breathing turned heavier and more erratic. Through her training, she had learned to see every detail, leaving nothing unturned. And she knew that when she patted him down on Monday that she was so happy to not see a ring on his finger. Her words of Monday came back to her as she spit them out towards him like venom. I said this was a date, didn't I? Naruto grounded his teeth. I thought you meant to reconnect. Time slowed down as Sakura felt so embarrassed from everything. She had said love, not like. Love. She had grinded against him as if in heat. The foreplay was done. She was insecure, vulnerable, and her adrenaline was now spiking. She was horny. As Sakura turned away to try and let herself calm down, Naruto felt terrible watching her. He had grown up making her feel this way after all. He could feel Sakura's body shaking with want from what he may have almost done with her. Her cheeks were as red as he remembered when they did it as teens. Her eyes were glossed over with a haze of grey lust as they both went to the other side of the gate and returned at the same time. He had got her Yule motor running, and if she hadn't changed too much from 10 years ago, then he felt even more guilty, because he knew that once Sakura was ready, then she felt this way for hours. He had to apologize more. Sakura, is she beautiful? Sakura whispered. Naruto gawked at her, trying to change the subject. While he still felt bad, he was also thankful to do and say anything else. Yeah. Smart. Sakura looked up through her eyelashes. Very much. Do you love her? Sakura asked and was rewarded as Naruto smiled back grimly and Sakura nodded mutely, filling it away in her head. He didn't love her in the same way that was like a wild romance of maelstroms and lighting like theirs, but it was still a form of love, and that made every argument moot. There wasn't much to say anymore between them, and after only a few more minutes, they both began to readjust themselves and pack up. Neither had to speak about how wrong the other had made them feel. They knew that they knew it. As they stepped outside, the cold wind nipped their arousals right off their skin and made them completely sober once again. After another block of silence, as they finally turned the corner and waited at the curb, Naruto turned to look at her, at his ex fingering her purse sadly and leaned in to kiss her cheek. I'm sorry tonight wasn't perfect. Sakura smiled back bitterly. It's alright. We can still be friends again, right? Please leave me some strand of solace. Sakura's mind screamed. She still desperately wanted to remain in his life now that they were reunited. Naruto beamed with happiness. Absolutely. A howl emitted in the background as a knife and a splatter of blood covered the screen of the television, and then a narrator conveyed the story of a young woman stabbed 20 years ago and fed to wolves to hide the evidence. Had they found the killer? Only by continuing to watch would they find out. Meanwhile, on the couch of the living room, a perky blonde laid out from end to end, casually watching the murder channel at midnight. Her blonde locks splayed across her near form, her body only covered up by a see-through nightie that pronounced her S rather than cover them up, and a set of the skimpiest of panties to cover herself, otherwise she was bare. Ino loved the investigative shows that this channel put on, and it helped her distress after long hours at work. A bottle of wine stood proudly on the coffee table, with a wine glass half full. That helped her too. Being on track for junior partner to her law firm meant long arduous hours, but she wasn't due in court until noon tomorrow and she was all caught up on her cases, so she was fine. And unlike her new coworkers, she was not out there doing drugs and walking the streets for a good time. Well, not tonight at least. As Ino sat up to take a sip of wine, she wondered what her roommate was doing right now. The screen was filled with a dead body and wolves fighting over a carcass. She wondered if she had reconnected with her ex yet and they were in face. Slam went the front door and Ino's eyes bugged out as she looked at the clock and groaned. Sakura. It's only midnight. Ino complained around the corner as a meek drop of keys sounded in their bowl by the front door. Ino groaned even louder as she looked at the wine bottle and it wasn't even a third gone. I'm not even drunk yet. You said later. Ino stewed as she didn't hear her best friend moving towards her and stood up with a reassuring thought. Well, at least this means that I get to meet this Naruto of yours, but what the hell? Ino screamed as she turned the corner to see that her roommate was against the wall, shaking like crazy with silent tears. Oh Sakura, come here. Ino strode into the hallway and opened her arms. Sakura was quick to jump into her chest and wrap her arms around the girl, nudging her face between Ino's as Ino herself held her tight. No words needed to be said as Ino began the slow process of trying to get Sakura over to the couch without breaking the embrace, but when she didn't struggle at all, Ino knew that the date had not gone well. Sakura and her were alphas, leading the way and being confident about it. This friend of hers was broken in too many ways right now if she was able to be led around without resistance. Finally back on the couch, Ino could hear the shuttered breathing in Sakura's throat, as well as the fact that her entire body was full of jitters and shaking. If Ino didn't know better, then either Sakura was on drugs, or she was facing withdrawal from being aroused. Her show already long forgotten, Ino combed through her hair slowly and precisely, pulling her friend out of her sad shell. Hey, you want to tell me? Sakura mumbled into her chest, and Ino sighed as the vibrations heated up the fabric, but did not reach her ears. Sakura. Quote. You wouldn't understand. Come on, Sakura. I can't help you if you don't tell me. Ino insisted. Did he reject you? I swear if he hurt you, I can totally ruin his life. She joked half-heartedly. No, Ino. Sakura sniffled as she tried to gulp back the tears in her throat. He was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Sakura screamed as fresh tears streamed down her face, but she looked at Ino sadly as the young blonde tried to dab away and take the salty water off her face. Sakura's eyes glazed over at the memory of the night. He looked so amazing, Ino. Just a bit taller than me, wearing these nice clothes that I just couldn't take my eyes off of him. He looked just as I remembered he did. Sakura's voice trembled. We talked so much. I flirted so hard on him. Sakura exclaimed as she leaned into her friend's hair, as Ino could taste the alcohol on her friend's breath. I mean, I was sending so many signals, Ino. I touched his thigh, I leaned in to smile, and it wasn't even hard to do. My body just did it, as if it remembered him. Maybe you flirted too hard? Ino asked, as the tears dried up once more. I don't know. But then we were dancing. Ino heard the wistful look in her voice at that. She knew that Sakura fell into a trance with a good dance partner, Ino being one of her favorites, but as she rubbed her friend's back soothingly, she noticed all the dried sweat and the way her muscles are tightened all over her. Oh, Ino pulled back and sent a look of sympathy at Sakura's guilty face. Her hand squeezed her shoulder in realization. You got aroused, didn't you? So much. Sakura sighed into the confession, more relieved than guilty about being that way. We were dancing so close, it was like I was being stalked by a hunter, and I was the hunter too. It was like a gunshot went off. Sakura sniffled morbidly as she grabbed one of the pillows on the couch and squeezed it to her chest. I kissed him. I kissed him hard, and my tongue too, and it was like time reversed. We weren't ever separated, like we were back in school again, Ino. It was amazing. Ino breathed heavier as Sakura told her tale. Sakura had always listened to her recounting of hot guys but it was an amazing experience Ino now found herself in, to hear the other side for once. Her romantic roommate, literally telling her how she fell into the past and got down on the love of her life. Wow. That sounds too romantic, and dirty. Ino grinned wider at the perverse thoughts in her head. Did you do it then? I mean, at the club. I never thought you that kind of girl, but. Sakura shook her head negatively and continued her story. We got to the wall, it's a miracle we did. I was all over him, Ino. I'm sure I flashed someone something. If he had taken off my dress, at the time I don't even think I'd care that much. We were just in the zone, you know. But when we were on the wall, we only needed like the corner. I was on his lap facing him and ing lips so hard. His hand was in my hair, pulling me towards him. His other hand, it was pulling my dress up. I didn't even realize it till just now. I mean, my hands weren't any better. I was sculpting his chest. He felt nice despite not working out, and I work with those freaks at the station so I know. But then, oh god Ino, I grinded so hard on him. I wanted him to bad, Sakura uttered quietly with a raspy whisper. Sakura looked up at Ino, her eyes brimming with pent-up desire and jittering with a crescendo that wouldn't happen. You would have met him for sure if I had done him. Ino bit her lip to keep herself from cursing. Her poor roommate. Just as she suspected, nothing happened for her, and as she thought before, with all the shivers, she knew once her roommate got aroused, she was so for hours unless sated. Sakura was still in for a long night ahead of her. Damn, what happened? Ino asked, and Sakura blushed as she stood up, not liking the comfort all of a sudden. Sakura? Ino asked as she too stood up, following her friend's sagging shoulders as she whispered. Quote. I said it, okay. Sakura's voice floated through the air as Ino's face saddened as she sent an accusatory glare at her friend. Please tell me you didn't. Sakura nodded in guilt as Ino cursed and pulled at her hair to show her annoyance. Sakura, you told him you love him. Ah, no guy wants to hear that so soon. Ino bit her thumb for a second as she looked back over at Sakura standing in front of the fireplace. Then again, he is a past lover, so maybe he likes hearing that, but, geez. Still, geez Sakura, you can't do that to a guy. You scared him off. Sakura leaned against the wall, looking more than depressed, but Ino rubbed her back, comforting her. Hey, don't worry about it though. Just play it off as in the moment, you know. I'm sure he'll understand. You've told me that you told him that every day for 2 years, so he'll surely just think it's muscle memory. Ino smiled brightly. Get another date. This will all be better with time. Quote. I can't, Ino. Why not? Quote. He's engaged. Quote. What? Ino deadpanned, her voice dropping volume in disbelief. Surely he's just scared. He's lying. I mean, he showed up, didn't he? He thought we were just reconnecting. Sakura mumbled. Well, in a way, Ino suggested. Sakura quirked her eye and looked in Ino's direction as her friend pierced her forefinger through a circle of her other hand repeatedly. Sakura blushed madly and looked away. He's getting married, Ino. I ed up. I lost my shot. Ino looked up at the ceiling and then shrugged back at her. Him anyways. What? Sakura choked out. Ino smiled over at her with a confident look in her eyes and oozing off of her body. Sakura, he's engaged, not married. I've done things for bachelor parties. It's all fine in the end. I couldn't do that. Sakura shook her head as Ino held her by her shoulders and smiled a toothy grin. Look, Sakura. Maybe he does marry another girl, but you can him until then. Sakura smiled weakly, not believing she could do it. She had been at Ino's side since high school and had indeed seen her go off multiple times to do engagement parties for some friends, but she couldn't be that girl. No way. There was nothing on earth that could convince her to do that kind of arrangement. Quote. Maybe he'll give it to you again. Ino murmured. Sakura's entire mind flipped as a stupid soft smile appeared on her face, her eyes glistening at the thought. Ino watched as Sakura stiffened in place as she looked down at her stomach and slowly grazed her fingers lightly across it. A bittersweet smile graced her lips. He touched my stomach before we danced. He wanted to know why I never called him. I couldn't tell him. I'm such a coward. Sakura confessed as she turned away. But Ino was quick to hug her close from behind. But now you can. She spoke into her ear. Sakura gulped back more shame. I can't, Ino. He'll be devastated. I never told him. I still wish you had. Ino refuted. He would have come to you. Ino commented as she poked her stomach as Sakura giggled and sighed contently, leaning back into her embrace. Come on, you should sleep it off. Sakura nodded mutely as Ino kept her steady as they moved down the hall. She was only a little tipsy, but her emotions were rubbed raw. Ino turned them into her room and Sakura kept the momentum going as she reached her closet and began to change for bed. As her dress slipped away from her body, Ino smiled at the sight of her friend's physique. While it could be said that Sakura was scrawny and had issues when she had first met Ino, the strict regimen and mentality learned there had definitely paid dividends to the both of them. Her friend's body had morphed into a toned sculpture. Nothing was overtly large or stood out, but her physique matched her body wonderfully. Her toned legs led up to a larger pert bottom, hips wide and raring to be used eventually. A smooth backside led to a tight back and strong feminine arms that could hold down a man twice her size while also making her approachable. Sakura had rocked that dress beautifully, exposing all her strengths while smoothing over her weaknesses. Ino mentally fanned herself at the sight as Sakura finished donning her pajamas of short shorts and an elastic sports top. Any guy would want to hit that body, let alone some girls Ino knew. But the silence had only stirred the pot, it seemed, to the conversation from earlier, and Sakura stewed in her self-pity as Ino again emphasized her point across. But I still say him, Sakura. Ino spoke up again, and Sakura sent a sad annoyed frown her way. Ino approached closer and looked at her in the eyes. You forget, Sakura, that I was there by your side the entire way. I was your roommate at boarding school and saw all your bad sides. I went through all the motions. Sakura fell down to her mattress as Ino joined their hands together and picked up her chin to force her to look at her again. I saw everything, Sakura, all the suffering you went through, and your biggest regret was that Naruto was not there. You want him. I can see it through your eyes. You still do. Sakura's lip wobbled. But he'd hate me. Sakura, you almost had his child. Ino yelled, pulling at her shoulders angrily before storming around the room with her feet. Sakura watched her caring friend pace around for her, bearing the emotions that she had long ago let die. To be in love, the idea of love. Sakura tearfully looked down and held her flat stomach, the unblemished skin only marked by a pale silver scar along the side. It was the symbol that would never leave her, forever marked, just as the memory of their only night together would stay forever. As Ino finally turned to walk out, Sakura reached out for her hand. "Stay?" she asked. Ino though smiled. "Don't worry. I'm only getting changed. I'll join you in a second." The elevator dinged into the silent hallway as Naruto stumbled out and made the way to his door. His downtrodden eyes glazed around the open space, easily enough for a small apartment or two, and looked back at the lock. It was always silent on his floor. There was no one else there. The lights had been off since long before he entered, the motion sensors bringing up soft glowing inlaid lights from the ceiling just as he approached their areas. He looked around the huge penthouse. All the people from tonight could have fit in here and still have room. Opening the door to his main suite and bedroom, he glanced at the bed, where his fiancée lay, asleep to the world with her snow-blessed skin shining in the moonlight from the glass ceiling above. He was an idiot. He was marrying a rich girl who would set him up for life. He didn't need to struggle in life like the lower echelons of civilization. This was his life, wasn't it? So lost in his thoughts was he that he took a snail's pace to change into his pajamas. And yet he didn't know why he bothered as he laid down on the left side of the bed that was designated for him. The mattress heated up to match his preferred temperature, lulling him into comfort as only the richest of items could seem to do. His motions had woken his fiancée as he laid down, and she rolled over to face him, her eyes glowing tiredly back at his. "Everything go all right, sweetie?" Naruto's throat pulsed with electricity, his lips bitten raw by his ex as his entire body electrified from her skin and body around his. Everything was fine. Want to talk about it? I'm here if it's serious. I still love you. Those 4 words replayed over and over in his head. Her voice so innocent and yet so loving that it made his heart ache. After all this time, she still loved him. Naruto shook his head to clear his mind. She herself had told him to forget it, that it was a reflex. He smiled sadly. He knew the feeling. He'd wanted to say it too, but they weren't like that anymore, and this was his life now. He was getting married, and she had nothing to worry about. No, nothing serious. Good night then. Hinata turned back around and was soon fast asleep. Even with the warmth of the mattress, the proof of a body lying next to him, Naruto stayed awake, feeling so alone in this huge apartment that was swallowing him whole, and his eventual relief was thinking about the girl of his past from so long ago. Tuesday, 6 weeks left until wedding. The weekend had come and gone as Naruto turned into the old parking lot that led to an older warehouse. As sole owner and operator, Naruto pulled into his dedicated spot in the front, and sat there for a minute. His mind still kept him up at night, thinking of a girl that he really shouldn't, but nevertheless, he did. Naruto recalled Hinata's speech from last Monday when she declared that she didn't care what he did before they were married, because they were forever once they were. So why did he feel guilty even considering it? "Good morning, Mr. Namikaze." One of his oldest workers yelled at him as he himself pulled in with a truckload of supplies. Naruto sighed with a smile and got ready for a day of happiness and dread. He stepped into the main lobby where a peppy college girl named Jamie asked him if he had a good weekend. He had, and asked about hers, to where she blushed and admitted that she may have partied a little too hard and her boyfriend was mad at her. As he grabbed the daily counts from her, he looked behind at the warehouse and remembered growing up in there, his parents shifting him over from one employee to another as they struggled to keep their family-owned business afloat. Yes, ma'am. Jerry, a 15-year veteran, spoke into the phone for a customer. We hear it, lighting kunai, deliver as fast as lightning. Yes, ma'am, that is a fun line to say. Our CEO made that up when he was but a young lad. Naruto overheard their tagline, and blushed embarrassed. He had been 12 and his parents had taken it way too far, changing the logo to match the phrase, so now a yellow circle enraptured a black knife cutting across it, and everything from their shirts to the trucks and even the far wall had it emblazoned on it. Mr. Namikaze, we got the Landorn deal. Emily shouted across the entirety of the warehouse and Naruto faked a smile and waved back at her, before he moved up the stairs to the balcony that ran around the entirety of the huge facility. His parents' company had survived and prospered over the years, but it was their dream, not his. He wanted to find something he was passionate about for his life, but instead he solved problems everywhere he turned. The moving into a completely online world, the benefits system in accounting used to be a joke, and hiring Jamie had been perfect timing as customers asked to visit the warehouse on a near-weekly basis to tour their new partnership. Times were looking up for the company, but Naruto's body tightened from the near-constant strain of the 14-hour days and the fact that no matter what he fixed, there was always something else that needed fixing. Morning, boss. A black-haired man grinned over at him as he entered the separated office space on the second floor. It had its own stairwell, and its own spots dedicated for them, but Naruto didn't park there. He wanted to see the employees every day. They were the only reason he could get up in the morning. Sasuke, just don't. You're like my equal here. Naruto sighed and sagged into his seat, ignoring the smirking man across from his own desk. If I was equal, then I'd have a share in the company. You do have a share. But not enough to matter. Sasuke shrugged. Quote. We got the Landorn contract signed last night. Oh boy. Naruto, be happy. That's 5 million a year. And another 3 hours a week that I have to ask someone to stay over to finish. Naruto muttered as he looked out the window to the employees milling around below. Everyone's willing to do it, Naruto. I know that, but they shouldn't have to. Naruto's angry snarl diffused. Hey. Sasuke smirked. Everyone loved the raise 2 months ago. We're really turning a profit. Quote. Did you notice Jamie limping this morning? Naruto whispered, his eyes narrowing. She mentioned that she tried to help out a bit. Sasuke, Naruto sighed as he rubbed his neck with his hands. She's only supposed to do her side of the work. That is her side. Molly took her maternity leave. She had the baby. Naruto looked over to match Sasuke's smile. Yep. Pictures are plastered all over the break room kitchen. Wow. She's been trying for 5 years with her husband, good for her. Speaking of trying, Sasuke stalled, getting his attention as Naruto looked up. I've been waiting for the details. Did you and that ex of yours hook up last Wednesday? No. It was heated. I didn't expect that. I told you it was a date. Yeah. Everyone told me that and I was the idiot who didn't believe it. Naruto sighed. I haven't been sleeping too good because of it. I bet you haven't. Sasuke suggested only for him to dodge a pencil thrown his way. Hey. You should have just aired her or something. Get some nice stress relief that way. I'm engaged, Sasuke. Guys don't do that when they're engaged. Was it fun at least? To see her again. At that, Naruto stopped working and looked back at him with a thoughtful look. The look soon turned into a broad smile. It was exhilarating, to say the least. Exhilarating. Come on, Naruto. You're not married yet. I say her. Sasuke, I can't. That's not. I mean, I want to. No, it's not right. Look, man. Sasuke leaned on his desk towards him and Naruto took sharp attention. Sasuke may joke around like any good friend, but after years together, when he leaned over a desk, he meant business. You're getting married in 6 weeks. Nothing is going to change that. All I'm saying is that you sleep with her, bang her so good that whatever the both of you felt back in is enshrined as a great memory. You end that part of your fun, exciting life with her, satisfying all those pent-up urges after all these years, all the things that the two of you wanted to do and didn't, and after all the fun is out of it, you marry into the loveless marriage that you signed into to save this company. Naruto looked down, trying to deny that logic. Hinata loves me. You clearly don't return her love. You never have. Sasuke retorted, rolling his eyes as he leaned back up. This whole contract with the Hyuga Corporation includes an archaic marriage sealed to be official. Besides, you just said last week that Hinata doesn't care what you do until you're married, so what's the harm? Naruto still looked unsure and Sasuke sighed and prepared to push his best friend into the arms of his high school love. Look, I only came here to Konoha after your parents died and you took all this work on your own. You left college and were doing a great job. You hired me with no references fresh out of high school because my brother and I started a nice side business that worked well with yours. I started working here after all that stuff happened in high school, so I don't personally know Sakura, but from what I've seen all these years, of you being able to smile every time even a mention of her pops up, if you two were that in love back then, I'm sure there are feelings now, right? Naruto went to open his mouth when he paused, thinking about what Sasuke had said. Sakura did blurt that big word out. His entire body had been ready to take her down in front of a whole club and damn the consequences. But he had cowered out. Even if he was engaged. Well, Naruto's fingers began to move as he reached for his phone and sighed morbidly at the clear problem at hand. I don't even have her number and shatter. The glass window exploded next to them, sending shards across the room and onto the floor. Not again. Sasuke shouted as he surged from his desk and down the back stairs. Naruto sighed and walked over to the window, stopping to pick up the rock that had caused the damage, and the fist-sized hole now in the window. He made his way to the side where that window was open and gazed at the backside of the warehouse where between the shipping boxes and freight trucks, 2 young teens tried to escape, only to run straight into Sasuke and the guard who held them by their shoulders. Sasuke looked up at the window and yelled, "Naruto, call the cops this time." Naruto held himself back from reaching for his phone. He couldn't help but be indecisive as he saw the boys struggling to get away. He did stupid things when he was their age too, worse even with his partner in crime. Was it really so bad? I can't just talk it out with them. Naruto called down hopefully, but Sasuke sighed and shook his head. Naruto, you paid for 3 windows already and talked with them twice before today. Call. The battle lost, Naruto went for his phone. All right. 20 minutes later, Sasuke stood outside with Naruto and the guard holding the 2 boys between them as a police cruiser pulled into their lot. Stopping a little ways before them so as to let the numerous freight trucks have ample space, the 2 officers stepped out and began to head their way. Sasuke almost jumped when he heard Naruto take in a quick gasp into his lungs. Why was he surprised all of a sudden? Sasuke directed his gaze to the officers and looked at their plates before he stifled a huge grin. Oh, this was just too good. Naruto gasped as he spotted pink hair in a princess braid falling around the officer's head and formed a short ponytail in the back. Sakura was here. Naruto's mind should have been panicking, but instead he was wondering about her hairstyle. He hadn't noticed it before, but that style. Back in high school, Sakura had made fun of it in high school, saying that girls don't braid like that unless they're full of themselves and calling it stupid. Had she been covering up the idea that she liked it? Naruto felt cheated and lied to. She could have confided that secret with him. Naruto shook his head. Maybe it was regulations, yeah. That could be it. Sakura looked over, her conversation with her partner done, and as she faced them, Naruto made direct eye contact. Sakura continued to look right at him as she approached, making him shiver with nerves. How was he supposed to act? Hello. I am Officer Haruno and this is my partner. She recited to them, her voice perfectly neutral and professional. We're here about a report about trespassing and destruction of property. Naruto held in his raging nerves as she looked at him again. Yes, ma'am. I called the police. Care to make a statement? Have the boys been here before? Yes, ma'am. They've been here 2 or 3 times before, but we've only caught 'em twice before. We have the paperwork of the previous incidents. This is the first destruction of property. No, ma'am. Sasuke spoke up. My boss here has paid himself to fix 3 previous windows. Officer Haruno nodded along and began to write things down on her pad. I see. As the other officer spoke up and talked to the guard about his story, Naruto couldn't do anything but stare at Sakura. He had reconnected with her when she was on duty, but now, once again she was here before him, and yet she acted like he was a complete stranger. There was so much tension in the air between them. Surely, she felt like an idiot after he embarrassed her last week, leaving her hot and bothered and unsatisfied, all because he was too dense to realize she had asked him on a date. No wonder she was creating distance between them. Now boys, Sakura bent down to look at him, and their struggling ceased right away as they ogled his ex in her uniform. He would too, if he wasn't surrounded right now. Can you tell me why you threw those rocks? It's an old building. Yeah. But people work here. You could have hurt someone. What if your parents worked here? Would you throw rocks then? No. My mom would cream me if I hit her with a rock. Ha. You're scared of your mom. You're scared of your baby sister. Boys. Officer Haruno reached over and grabbed each of their shoulders and both of them looked at her. It was wrong, and you two are going to have to work something out so that the officer glanced her green eyes at him before frowning slightly. Quote. Namikaze, so that he doesn't have to pay more money. We're sorry. That's good. We'll take you home. Come on now. Officer Haruno guided them back towards the car, opening the back as each teen slid inside. Naruto watched as she acted stern and cross towards the boys, but in a motherly manner. Man, she'd be great with kids in the future, guilting them into apologizing while still in a loving manner. What a knockout play of hers. As Officer Haruno began to head back, Sasuke and the guard led the other officer towards the actual scene, leaving the two of them to themselves. This was his chance. Saku. Mr. Namikaze, Sakura spoke again in an authoritative fashion, taking out a small notepad and pen as she began to write something down. Have you filed a report before? No, ma'am. Naruto gulped, feeling dejected as she looked at him with piercing eyes. He had really hurt her feelings, hadn't he? Why not? They're just kids, and, Naruto nervously rubbed his neck. I feel like I was like them at that age. Even so, you need to show them you mean business. Show them a firm exterior that tells them that you will be strict. Naruto grinned sheepishly. You know I'm not that kind of guy. Sakura frowned and looked back down to write in her own notes. So no. I'll try to be more strict, ma'am. I worry for your employees' safety if you don't. She looked down, writing things down as Naruto nodded his head. I agree. Thank you, officer. Well, if you remember anything else that comes to mind. Officer Haruno finished as she pulled off a tag and card and handed both over to Naruto, who accepted it and sighed, letting it down to his side without looking at it. The other officer came up as they finished their report and walked back to their car, before driving away to drop off the young delinquents. Naruto sighed depressed as he turned back to his place of business. He couldn't help but feel downtrodden. She didn't say that she wanted to meet up again, or even tell him off and to never contact her again. It was like the door was left open for him, but with a pit bull guarding the doorway. Sasuke met him at the stairs, chuckling to himself as he glanced back at the ghostly image of where the officers had stood. So that was Sakura, huh? Why yeah. Naruto shrugged lethargically. You told me she was a rail thin girl. Well, she was lithe and built for speed back in high school. Naruto rebutted. A low growl emanated from Sasuke's throat. Still though, she filled out wonderfully. Naruto could only agree. Disappearing junior year had him miss her last growth spurt, from her chest growing out to her bottom shaping wonderfully. I'd cheat on my wife for that. At that comment, Naruto sported a goofy smile and playfully swung at his coworker. That doesn't count, you bastard. Why not? Sasuke dodged and ran up the stairs to their office. You're not showing her any appreciation. You and your wife are swingers. Naruto yelled back, shivering at all the lewd tales the black-haired male would gloat about, switching wives and seducing girlfriends for a thrill of a night. Naruto sighed as the depression hit him again. He would have been lucky enough to just make Sakura happy. He didn't like it, being gazed at like that. It was like she was waiting for him to man up and do something, like she was waiting for him to pounce on her. He wasn't that kind of guy, well, not anymore. Sasuke hugged him around the shoulders, scanning the papers in his hand to smirk. All jokes aside, you make it seem as if you don't have a reason to be with her, but it looks like she has a motive to be with you. Huh. Naruto finally glanced down at the paperwork, at the ticket with his copy of her report, and on top of it was a blank card. Still friends, was written on the top section of the card with a little cherry blossom symbol, her rebellious symbol she'd tag on anything she got her hands on back in the day, and her number underneath that. Seems to me that the date wasn't a total loss after all. Sasuke remarked as he sat back down and got to work. His pen swirled across the page, signing his name to agree to the terms that were set on it. 20 more times he signed on the list of documents before looking up and sliding it back over the table of rich mahogany. Excellent, Namikaze. That takes care of the accounting departments. Now for the next group. A tall pale-eyed man spoke as he handed the documents off to Hinata, who took it outside of the small conference room where they were seated. As Naruto waited, he stretched his fingers out, the cartilage groaning at him from the inside, looking at the visage of the man before him. Hiyashi Hyuga, Hinata's father, and the current CEO of Hyuga International, the man who Naruto was selling his company to. Naruto breathed out and reminisced how this all started. His parents' health deteriorated after his senior year of high school, and he started helping out at Lightning Kunai, doing his best to ensure that people who wanted something shipped could do it with as little headache as possible. But then in his first year of college, his parents had fallen gravely ill, and he had to take up their medical life at home, and took full control of the company in their name. His father always wanted to do the paperwork, even though his eyes couldn't read the pages clearly, while his mother just asked if he was getting enough sleep, or some time to find a girl for them to meet. Naruto grimaced at the memory. Right. Like he had time to meet a girl and introduce her to the headache of his life. The death a few months later, sleeping beside each other peacefully, had the whole company down for a week of silence. That's when the real work began. With his parents' shadows hanging over him, and a company in need of leadership, he dropped out of college, giving him the hours he needed to take care of their legacy to him. The company was being attacked on all sides, with more competitors, new technology, and the accounting was off by 10% in the hole. He went to work on it. He didn't leave the site for maybe a year. He bought a new accounting system to manage it all, fired 2 guys who were deliberately sabotaging their brand image, and spent God knows how long learning about new technology and adding them himself to his fleet of shipping trucks. He was fortunate, it turned out, as the economy slumped for 2 years, but his business began to boom. He hired Sasuke and his brother and their burgeoning company, whose algorithms could detect the best routes and what the competitors were about to do, as if predicting the future. He got it all up and running, and that was the first year that they were in the black. He hadn't hired a single person before then. He'd kept the same crew that his parents had during those first 2 years. He hired about 10 as they began to grow, bringing the total to 60. That's when he saw it 5 years ago. The huge trend upward in growth. His workers started feeling the stress building as their days grew long, but they knew his parents, and they had seen how hard Naruto was working for them and the company, noticing how he was the first to arrive and the last to leave. He didn't lose anyone and increased their benefits and pay as he saw them struggle to do their jobs. All Naruto could think was that he had to take care of them. How could he let them down when they were working so hard? Willing to push their bodies beyond what they had to do, day in and day out. That's when Hinata entered his life. She was calm and calculated and offered him a deal with Hyuga International, to ship within the city of Konoha. He took the chance and signed the deal, thinking it was a good bet. It was a month after that when Hinata had asked him out, saying how she had watched him in college and fell in love with him. She had seen him struggle and found that struggle titillating. The deal with the monolith that was the Hyuga was too good of a deal. They doubled their shipments within a year, and Naruto started asking his team for overtime beyond the normal work. Hinata came by more often, dragging him to these fancy balls and plays, introducing him to influential people, and getting even better deals. His stress soared as his company tripled from when he started just 18 months prior. He hired en masse, with 40 more employees, but it didn't help curb the overtime. He bought an entirely new fleet 2 years ago, and it made everyone happy at the investment of new equipment. He'd even had enough money to almost double the new pay for his employees, praising them for all the hard work these last 6 years. They were grateful, even if they knew that he was hiding the fact that he needed them to work overtime almost permanently. No one backed down from the overtime. They were given anything they asked from their owner, and their morale was soaring while Naruto held in his ensuing panic that he couldn't solve. And that's how Hinata found him, trapped in his office at 5 in the morning, no one else but the guard at the front, working hard to finish a report that should have been done 2 weeks ago to the IRS. The offer, that threw him off his game. She knew he didn't love her like that. They got along well, they could sit beside another for hours without words, but he had told her how he just didn't love her like that. And yet, she accepted him as he was. Maybe she just liked having the power to see him struggle. She had told him how she'd been working with her father on a deal. To alleviate his burden, Lightning Kunai would merge with Hyuga International, becoming their main leg for shipping worldwide. His parents' legacy around the world. And all he had to do was marry her. Naruto, are you alright? Yes, sir. Naruto exclaimed before grimacing at the man before him. Just recalling how I got into all this. A good man knows his past, Naruto. A great man uses his past to make a great future. I know you're worried about this deal, and I can assure you that this deal is a great one. I know that, sir. This has been such a strain on me, I don't know what I'll do when it's all over. Well, you'll work here, of course. Being a Hyuga by marriage after all. Yes, sir. Naruto smiled tightly. He wouldn't have to truly work here at all. Hinata was the next in line for the CEO after maybe 20 years, so he'd just be a regular worker with an office and maybe one or two guys underneath him. Here you go, father. Hinata spoke as she re-entered with the next stack of forms. Naruto began to sign again, his mind numbing along the way as he read more and more. This is what he'd be doing all day. Signing for documents and passing them along. He wouldn't have to worry about an employee's personal life anymore, about their lives at all. He'd be rid of all the weight that was burdened on his shoulders without his consent. And yet, Naruto spoke up, interrupting the father-daughter moment in front of him. Maybe I could still work at the warehouse, Work with the people there. Sweetheart, Hinata moved forward to rub his face. We talked about this, didn't we? Well, I mean, you told me that, but I didn't. Your company will grow too big for that single old warehouse. We'll need teams for it once it grows that large. I don't want you stressed over that. But, besides, I can't have my husband traipsing away like a commoner at work. A commoner. Naruto quirked his eyes. They're not. Yes, I apologize. Now please just sign. Hinata rolled her eyes and nudged the pen into his hand. Naruto gulped back his retort and looked back down. So what is my role after the wedding? Silly. Hinata cooed as she kissed him deeply. Naruto responded, though not very much. They parted as Hinata cooed happily. You'll be married to me. You can do whatever you want. Go on vacations, exotic places, anywhere you want. Do anything. Oh, Naruto went back to signing until he got to the last page where his eyes squinted over the words. Hyuga-san. Yes. This section doesn't appear right. What's wrong with it? Well, this section says that all my employees with 5 or more years get golden parachutes for their time and service. That's right. Hiyashi nodded, looking over his copy of the contract. But that's wrong. Naruto leaned forward, pushing the page forward. It's for all of my employees, regardless of when they started at Lightning Kunai. Naruto, it's just a few employees. Hinata tried to shrug it off. But Naruto's eyes grew jaded as the stress bubbled out from his throat. It's not just a few employees, Hinata. Jamie's in college and needs to graduate so that she can pay for a nurse for her little brother who's paralyzed. Ricky will have a hard time keeping custody of his little girls without a steady job. Bobby. Hinata's glare frightened him, as she set her teeth on edge. Naruto. They're just not worth. I'll have it changed to correct it. Daddy. Hinata spun around, her face in shock as Hiyashi turned to face her stoically. My dear, your fiancé is correct. He did say all his employees. Now it is we who assumed he meant tenured, but we should have asked to clarify. We'll make the changes, Naruto. I apologize for the mix-up. Another 2 hours passed before Naruto had signed over the majority of his company away to Hyuga International. Shaking the CEO and his future father's hand, Naruto grinned tiredly at the smiling man. I never thought that I'd be selling 10% of the company to you, Naruto. You and me, both, sir. Naruto nervously shrugged. 10% of voting shares within a global corporation. That should mean that he was transcending entire pay gaps into the upper elite. But it wasn't. It was just a temporary measure. Once he married Hinata, the shares would go back to the both of them, being married and all. It was really for a symbol to hold for his company's future and current worth. The shares were easily worth their weight in gold, 5 times what his company was worth. As Naruto stepped out of the office, a huge web of guilt plagued him. His workers didn't want him to sell, he had kept them in the dark, he hadn't shown them just how backlogged they were. His friends told him that the marriage was a sham, it was just business. Besides, Hinata was a nice girl with a good upbringing, and a knockout body. Wouldn't any guy be happy with getting the hot girl and more money than he ever needed? Hanabi. Naruto uttered as a younger girl stepped out of an office, and the girl grinned happily as they turned towards the approaching party of 3. When did you get back? Just last night, Naruto. The young woman shrugged and lightly hugged her upcoming brother-in-law. Naruto smiled at the younger sister of his fiancé. She had a good head on her shoulders, family-oriented, but humble and sweet. I didn't know you'd be in today. I would have cancelled my plans for lunch. Just signing the papers. Sister. Hinata butted in as Hanabi frowned at that. I really don't see the need for it. He's joining our family anyways. It's symbolic, sweetheart. I understand, father. By the way, why are you back? Hanabi gulped. They needed more time to think on it. Hinata and Hanabi's father shivered in anger. And they sent you back. So inefficient. Don't be angry, father. The deal will only be stalled until the wedding. My wedding? Naruto questioned aloud. Hanabi smiled at him. Yes, Naruto. You have a brand new fleet of freight and such, and for the first expansion, our partnership in the Land of Mist is in much need of more supplies. Right now, we simply don't have enough to send supplies as fast as they'd like. But I only have 40 drivers, Hanabi. That surely doesn't make a dent. Maybe not right away, but you made a deal 4 years ago with the Mizukage district, right? Yes. So your brand is already established there. Hanabi smiled smartly as Naruto realized her goal. I see. Naruto nodded mutely. He didn't really understand brand recognition or how it was won over, but that was Hanabi's field with a double master's in marketing and strategic operations. She knew her stuff, and if she had been older, she might have been the next in line for the company chair. You are correct, Hanabi. Simply a. Hiashi groaned as he held a grip over his chest. Father, I'm fine. He wheezed. It's simply a form. Father, don't push yourself. Hanabi rushed forward, holding her father as he coughed up a storm before his secretary rushed over, bringing some water for him, as well as a pill. Damn heart again. You know mother worries about you. Yes. He sighed. I know. Well. Hinata spoke louder, looping her arm around her fiancé. We should get going. Shall we? Why yeah. Hey Hinata. Can we talk about this again? Naruto called out from the bedroom as his fiancé emerged from the bathroom, wearing a slim black dress with her cleavage spilling out from the top, her hair up in a bun, and 6-inch stilettos on her feet. Naruto, I'm tired of it. You signed the papers. It's done. Maybe I'm just wanting to stay where I am, you know. Oh Naruto. Hinata cooed as she strutted over and kissed his cheek. I don't care what you do right now. Once we say our vows to another, then I'll demand everything. I get it all right. You're used to being in charge. That's not actually. I like being in charge too. I spend every day yelling at inept workers who need to be pushed and told to not drag their feet. No one likes to lose control, Naruto. We're a team, right? Quote. Right. Good. Hinata smiled and pecked him on the cheek for good luck. Now I need to go or I'll be late. Naruto grinned sarcastically. You're always late. Fashionably late is not late at all, Naruto. Hinata smiled. I'm just letting the other girls have some of the spotlight is all. Naruto shrugged. He could never win an argument with his fiancée. Some people would say that girls always won in the relationship, but for Hinata, it was a matter of pride. Naruto could delay it, but over weeks and multiple talks, he'd eventually agree with her side. There was just no point saying no anymore. A few minutes later, he heard the door to the penthouse close and he was alone. It wasn't long before Naruto found himself on the couch in the living room, with a bottle of wine in front of him, watching some terrible movie that he didn't even care about. His fiancée was out partying with her trust fund friends, partying and doing whatever they wanted. They could be buying luxury cars, buying the fanciest of clothes, and doing the most ludicrous of things. They were used to this life. And yet here Naruto sat, in this multi-million-dollar house on top of a skyscraper in the middle of the city and he was dead inside. Is this what life was really about? Getting all the money and spending it as fast as it came in. Is this what he would find himself doing after he was married? A small smile graced his face. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad once he had kids of his own. Little rugrats running around for him to spoil and take to school. To see them grow and make sure they grew up right. The smile, however, began to fade. Hinata would insist on getting a nanny and a tutor and anyone else to raise the kids for them. She had grown up with that after all. Naruto sighed out his depression. Wasn't there anything better he could do on a Thursday night? Quote. I bet Sakura's kids would be beautiful, Naruto uttered into the great expanse of a room. Slowly, Naruto sat up, and reached towards the coffee table. His hand slid underneath it and twisted a small knob, before a secret compartment opened up. Hinata knew about the space, so it wasn't truly secret, but she never hid things anyways, so it was a tiny place where he could store stuff without leaving it out in the pristine sterile environment that was his home. Feeling the hard paper fall into his hand, Naruto leaned back into the couch, lying into the deep foam that threatened to swallow his inebriated self up for the night. His hand pulled the paper up towards the ceiling, cast against a backlit bulb shining down on him. His tired eyes looked up at the eerily soft glow of the light and focused on the business card in his hand. His ex's handwriting lay on it, drawing him in with the perfectly precise scribble that made her look fancy and alluring. His fingers slowly twirled it around, his mind twirling with it as a rogue thought entered his mind. It was a stupid thought. She was probably mad that he hadn't called her right away. He had embarrassed her in the worst of ways, rejecting her after they had already gone so far. And yet the need to see her had not left him. He wanted to see her. But maybe he could just hear her voice. He could apologize, and they could do what this card asked. Friends. Naruto's other hand typed the digits into his phone and pressed the message button to type. Sweat covered her skin, glistening in the last rays of daylight as she approached the screen door to her house. Once inside, the comfort of the air conditioner made her sigh contentedly and move around to the kitchen where she could have a huge glass of water. Sufficiently watered, Sakura made her way to the living room where she laid out on the sofa and pressed to play a random movie. Her body slowly caught up with her, moving from a fast-paced heartbeat to a mellow one that threatened to put her to sleep any minute. She had gotten off work 3 hours ago after a grueling 16-hour day stuck in a squad car, looking for trouble to be stamped out with her authority as a peacekeeper. Sakura stretched out like a gymnast, bringing her fingers and toes to the furthest they could go and sagged into the cushions. A long intense 2-hour workout now tingled over her entire body as her toned muscles relaxed themselves, as Sakura looked down at her attire of a cropped sports bra and tight lycra shorts to see her flesh cooling off in the controlled environment. She never expected to have a body she was proud of when she was in high school and smirked at the chest that had grown in. Very proud indeed. Sakura's eyes turned into the television screen just as the two female characters began a catfight. You can't make him happy. Like you can. You're just using him to stroke your ego. Oh. Well, at least I stroke something. Not like you, you bitch. Ah. Sakura's eyes simmered as the catfight turned ugly, both girls lashing out with their nails and gnashing with their words and teeth at the other, trying to win the heart of the rebel who watched them from afar, surprised by their outcries of affection. She had been that rebel in middle and high school, and felt for the poor male character. Sakura herself had many girls try to goad her into getting expelled, boys trying to get in her pants to make her not a rebel but an easy score in the sack, but she'd resisted well enough. Not enough to not get a hell load of detentions, but they were good times, and Sakura remembered them fondly because they were who she was. A hot-headed smart teenager who chose for herself what she believed in and would not be bullied by others as she had been back in elementary school. Ah. Sakura melted for a second as she looked down at her hair caught in the clasp of her necklace. After untangling it, Sakura brought the necklace to her eyes and stared into the sapphire color of the gem. She'd had it on her neck for years. Why she still had it on was a mystery to her. She just felt like wearing it always, even on duty, which was a major regulation issue if someone wanted to get her in trouble. Heck, blue did not even go well with her hair color being a brig.